Interesting news for Bitcoin users. It seems as though the legislative powers in California are in support of the continued use of Bitcoin. In fact, it's taking steps towards the legalization of using the digital currency. A bill, Act to amend Section 107 of the Corporations Code relating to business associations, introduced by California State Assembly member and Chairman on Banking and Finance Roger Dickerson on January 15th, AB 129, Lawful Money Alternative Currency, as amended January 23, 2014, specifies that current law which bans the issuance or circulation of anything but lawful money of the United States does not prohibit the issuance and use of alternative currency. Now this is what they, the lawmakers, are saying about the changes made. This bill makes clarifying changes to current law to ensure that various forms of alternative currency such as digital currency, points, coupons, and other objects of monetary value do not violate the law when those methods are used for the purchase of goods and services or the transmission of payments. No corporation, flexible purpose corporation, association, or individual shall not issue or put in circulation as money anything but the lawful money of the United States. Now this doesn't just specifically refer to Bitcoin, it also refers to other alternative currency like Bay Bucks that were used previously. Now generally the enforcement of these things has been rather lax. In other words, the law enforcement, the FBI really doesn't care about it. What this would do would be to remove that general threat from it. Typically the FBI or whatever authority wouldn't actually enforce these laws, but it'd be one of those things where they would use it against you if they wanted you for something else. Interestingly, the people behind the use of alternative currencies seem to feel that their use is part of the First Amendment. Become a form of political protest as some communities that use such currency do so in protest of United States monetary policies or large financial institutions. Yes, it most certainly is used in protest of U.S. monetary policy, and that would be the whole point. They feel that it's crooked, it's corrupt, it doesn't work, and they want to provide themselves with their own alternative. The problem here is that this could actually be interpreted as an act of terrorism. Although it's stretching it a bit. Understand that a lot of the people who use Bitcoin or some of the alternative currencies do so because they have a genuine belief that this will challenge the power of the U.S. government. This is supposed to challenge the hegemony held by corporations. The use of such digital currencies, as many of from the Free State Project believe it, this is supposed to bring down the U.S. economy. This is supposed to bring down the U.S. government by not participating in its economy by using the traditional currency. Of course, that's pretty laughable, and Bitcoin would never have anywhere near the ability to do something like that. That is their particular mindset. A dumb plan to destroy the U.S. government is still technically an act of terrorism. Of course, it would be really pathetic to actually drag someone before a judge with this, but you can definitely see why if the government wanted somebody for something else, they would definitely throw this on top of it as a way to get at that person. However, the bill specifically does not make Bitcoin legal tender by prohibiting a person from being required to accept alternative currency. So Bitcoin hasn't come the full way of being recognized as legal tender yet, but I would think that the people who very most adamantly support the use of Bitcoin don't actually want that to happen anyway. But it's very important to show that while it seems like the U.S. government, or at least in this case California, is backing the use of alternative currencies, they are certainly not seeking to make it, legal tender. They're not trying to make it officially a part of the system. Or you know what it could be? We do know that the U.S. government is not really just going to let people do whatever it is that they want, particularly if that could, even in a theoretical situation, cause harm to the economy. I think maybe what they could be doing is encouraging the use of alternative currencies in order to spark crisis. Now, let's say for some reason Bitcoin becomes really, really big and starts being used a lot in California, which is not surprising given the Silicon Valley kind of mentality, the tech culture that exists in the state, even if only in some areas. Let's say it gets big enough and it starts getting used a lot. Well, guess what? Bitcoin, just like fiat government currency, is not immune to crisis because changing the currency doesn't inherently change the mechanism of capitalism. Now let's say it's going to go into crisis. Guess what's going to happen? the government is going to look to regulate Bitcoin. Or more specifically, it's going to look to regulate alternative currencies. Now, if you think this can't happen, I would like to point to a phenomenon that took place in the 1970s in Canada. We had back then what was called barter bucks. Essentially, it was an alternative currency. It essentially was based on barter, but the problem with barter is you can't really determine an exact value from each service or product being provided. So they came up with a system. They provided barter bucks, and then you decided that this is how much you wanted to do it for or whatnot. And essentially, what was essentially supposed to be barter turned into currency. In other words, once again, we see that in the act of lubricating exchange, you need some form of money for that. My point is, it actually got, relatively popular, where this was actually starting to take stuff away from the mainstream economy. And of course, being that the system needs money to survive, they decided to start regulating it. So people started to have to report that they were getting barter bucks. So the government of Canada decided that one barter buck was equivalent to $1 Canadian, because that's relatively what they were being used for. The prices were actually equalizing and coming out to be about the same. So now you had to pay taxes according to the dollar amount on your barter bucks. Is it really so hard to believe that the government would not step in on digital currencies at some point and try to regulate it? Of course, this is not the same as regulating a paper currency that physically exists back in the 1970s. Of course, that's insanely harder, if not actually impossible, to do with a digital currency. But it is not beyond the realm of government to try. Some form of regulation will come out if for some reason Bitcoin actually got big enough, or if it managed to cause a problem. Well, we do know competing currencies doesn't work. We've had something very similar to that. It causes tremendous instability. Again, this is standing from the position that Bitcoin could ever really challenge the US dollar in any way. The point is, this is a step closer to state power taking over Bitcoin, should it be necessary, because the law here, even in a limited way, has legitimized the use of it. And one of the great things about a state is that when it wants to control something, it will legitimize it. And I think that's possibly what we're looking at. The reaction to this has been rather ho-hum, like nobody's really all that excited about it. Nobody really thinks it's a bad idea. Nobody really thinks it's a good idea. But personally, in my experience, what I think the state is trying to do here is create some kind of legitimacy, so that way it can step in one day and take over if it feels that it is necessary to do so. Thank you for watching. Please comment and rate the video. If you liked it, hit subscribe or check out some of these other great videos. If you wish, share it on social media. While you're at it, why don't you follow me on Twitter? And if you got time, go on over to the MRN bookstore and check out some of the latest books available.